How do you become a smart buyer and increase your chances of winning the price wars here in Spokane? It doesn't always come down to the amount of the offer. Sellers are looking for certainty, the ability of the buyer to close the deal. I had a client from California, Brian Johnson, and his wife Audrey. They drove up to Spokane looking for investment property. Brian had inherited a little bit of cash, and they both decided that investing it in real estate was the better way to preserve the value of their money. However, they did not want to invest all the cash. He wanted to put a substantial down payment to minimize fees and eliminate mortgage insurance, then borrow the rest of the money so it could be paid for by the rental income from their investment. This was a wise choice because they were taking advantage of the low cost of borrowing money. The good thing that they did was to apply for a pre-qualification loan. That's step number one towards winning the Spokane price wars. Buyers get the confidence of what they can afford while shopping for a house. It isn't a guessing game. It isn't, I think I can afford to pay this much. However, there was one thing that they did wrong. They started having doubts about their lender at the start of the escrow. When they finally read the small print on the day before closing, it was already too late. Either they move forward and accept the consequences or lose the deal altogether. I just talked to Brian last week, and 5 months into their new purchase, and he was still regretting his lender choice. But before we continue with their story, let's look at the market update as of December 26th. As we close out the year, median selling prices have remained high at near record levels. At that time, we structured an offer for Brian last June. There was a slight dip in the market prices and inventory was near record low. Brian and Audrey didn't have a lot of houses to choose from, and overall, there were a lot of competitive buyers. But step number 2 in winning the price wars is to buy a house when or where there is less competition with other buyers. Now, there are at least 3 situations where you can find less buyers. The first situation is with respect to pricing. This chart is the distribution of houses sold in Spokane, broken down into price brackets. You could see with the darker blue color that most buyers are competing between $275,000 to $400,000 houses. In Brian's case, their budget limit was $280,000, self-imposed because they can technically go as high as $350,000. Now that worked out in our favor in spite of the summer of 2021 being the height of the buying frenzy. By properly structuring our offer, we actually got a house under contract for $271,000. Less competition can also be applied to seasonal factors, which is situation number 2. For example, winter is a good time to make offers because most buyers are just taking it easy during the holidays and are putting off any decisions until the weather gets better in the spring. The third situation is days on market. When a house doesn't get any offers after an extended period of time, it becomes a stale listing. It's not a new or a fresh listing anymore. It gives a psychological signal that there's something wrong with the house. Therefore, most buyers avoid these properties. Usually, these properties are overpriced to begin with. I have advised several of my buyers to take advantage of this, and not only are they happy about their purchase, but they also got a price reduction below the adjusted real market price. I've covered this in a previous video, so I'll leave a link to that at the end of this video. Now, where Brian made a mistake is that they chose a national bank to get their loan. Based on my professional experience, a lot of escrow transactions are either delayed or jeopardized by the buyer's lender. As a general rule of thumb, the big banks are bureaucratic with a lot of red tape. They can't make quick decisions and are always limited by corporate policies and guidelines. They're not very flexible. For example, the loan officer told me that my buyers are already pre-qualified before we wrote out the offer. As it turned out, a separate department somewhere out in the East Coast wanted to qualify the Johnsons again, asking for a second time tax returns, pay stubs, and employment verification. Actually, I didn't get to know about this until 2 weeks into the escrow. Now, this delayed the appraisal of the house. And that was a major red flag because as the buyer's agent, I verbally assured the sellers that we were going to schedule the appraisal soon after they accepted our offer. Now, in the end, I had to request for an extension, but fortunately, it wasn't a big concern. Otherwise, my buyers could have lost the house. Now, the Johnson's experience is not unique. I've had several buyers who insist on using their own lenders only to regret it when they go through escrow. So my big recommendation is to use a local lender. They typically have only two parties that make the decisions, the local loan officer and the underwriter, who is usually local anyway. Because of the reputation of the big national lenders, listing agents prefer to choose offers with local lenders, assuming that the price differences between offers aren't too far apart. Now, finally, step number 3 in winning the price wars is to be flexible with respect to the physical condition of the house. The house was about 100 years old. That's the reason Brian and Audrey set aside some cash for any future repairs or modifications. In this particular case, we actually found some electrical issues. Because the Johnsons' intention was to rent out the property, they were extra careful about any safety liabilities. They were willing to accept it as is, but I advised Brian to leverage this weakness and negotiate for a lower price. Now, in the end, we got a $10,000 price reduction, so our new contract price is $261,000, almost $20,000 less than the Johnsons' budget. So let's summarize how to be a smart buyer in Spokane. Number 1, get pre-qualified with a local lender. Number 2, compete where there are less buyers, either A, in price brackets, B, in seasonality or time of the year, and C, days on market. And finally, step 3, be flexible about the house's condition. So that's all for today, folks. This is Dennis Isip with Avon Real Estate signing out. I'll see you in the next video.